God has radically transformed my perspective on giving since we've been in the ministry. So I asked Josh if I could share the Lord's grace for me throughout that transformation. Before we were married, I gladly tithed my paycheck. My parents faithfully and generously gave to the church, and that was never really a question. When Josh and I were going to get married, I figured we would tithe. He came from a minister's family. He worked in the ministry. We were going to tithe. But I kind of realized quickly that I had some different perspectives on tithing and what that was for. I know that I felt that when we gave to the church, we had given year after year, it paid the pastor's salaries and paid their benefits, that they needed that money from us. And I even remember when I was younger, I kind of thought maybe the pastors got like an employee discount and didn't even really have to give a full 10%. I didn't think that when we got married, but I did think that when I was younger. And so when Josh and I got married, he worked at the church that I grew up in. I just kind of thought that was part of the deal. We tithed and he got paid. But we ran into a little snag. I worked at a nonprofit agency and didn't get paid very much. And Josh was a full-time seminary student and worked part-time as a youth minister at the church. And I received health insurance from my nonprofit agency, but Josh had always gotten it through his dad being a student, and he was dropped when we got married. So I panicked and thought, oh, we can't handle paying health insurance out of our pocket. We're living paycheck to paycheck, pinching every penny. So I begged Josh, please talk to your boss, see if they can just give you health insurance. You're a student, you're working there, really full time, but just being paid part time. And I thought they should give him health insurance. And of course they declined. I really understand their perspective now, but at the time I was really frustrated, and I thought, we have given to this church year after year, and they need to take care of my husband. And so I came up with this plan, and I told Josh, I said, well, we'll take the tithe that we would have tithed out of my check, because they don't even know how much I make, and we'll pay for your health insurance out of that. We won't give that to the church, because in my mind, my tithe went to pay his salary, and I was just helping figure out how they were dividing up the money. So I was paying a minister's health insurance with my tithe. And I always remember Josh's response, because he's never been real heavy-handed on me, or he's the leader of our family, but he's not controlling. He just looked at me, and he wasn't condemning, but he just gently said, we're not going to do that. He said, let's pray about it. He said, and God will give us the money to pay for a cheap health plan, or I just won't have health insurance, and God will take care of us that way too. And that was the end of it. I didn't fight Josh on it, and he did not make me feel bad about my suggestion, but that was the end of it. And I never considered taking any money out of our tithe again, or what God was leading us to give even in addition to that. And as I look back over the years in our family, I feel like that was a real defining moment for our family, and I know it was a defining moment for me, because I can see the ways that God has taken care of our family. At our previous church, Josh was our only income, and he still is, but we added children. And I remember even the pastor asking Josh one time, how do y'all make it? How do you feed your children? And how are you not in crazy debt on the salary that we pay you? It doesn't make sense. Like, it's never made sense on paper, but we've never been in debt other than like a mortgage. We've never wanted for anything, and even been able to give generously back to the church and to others around us. And I feel like that's totally been God's provision, that he saw faithfulness back then, mainly in Josh, and he's given me so much grace to transform my perspective, that he's provided for us. I also remember when we moved here, we were able to sell our house for way more than we asked, when I even just kind of hoped we would break even. And then when we committed to giving here at our church a couple of years ago, the night before we were going to turn in a commitment card that was really a little more than I was uncomfortable with, I had realized I had done some figuring wrong and hadn't taken into consideration some state income tax stuff that was new to us. And I was panicked that we were going to owe all this state income tax, but God took care of that too. And he's just blessed over and over and over again. And I truly think it's his grace and his mercy for me. He really impressed upon me that I don't give to the church to pay for anyone's salary. I give to the church out of obedience, and it's a privilege that God can use the work of our hands to minister to others, to outreach to others. That's what we do. We don't we give it and we let it go. And so every Sunday, Josh knows this, I write our tithe check, and I write it because it gives me joy, because it used to not give me joy. And Josh is too humble to tell you that it's never really been a problem for him to tithe and even give above and beyond. You know, he just always says you can't outgive God, and that's really true, but it's been a struggle for me. So one time he even wrote our tithe check, and I got upset with him. I said, don't do that. That's my privilege. I like to be able to do that. It gives me joy, because it was such a hard thing for me in the past when we were struggling. And now it gives me so much joy to be obedient and to just trust God with our finances. And he has proved so faithful over and over again.